Welcome to the show, How to Buy a Homies. This episode is the ultimate playbook on how to buy a home. No more guessing, no more confusion. This is it. Play the music.
How to Buy a Home educates, protects, and connects first-time homebuyers to qualified vetted realtors in their area. Whether you're looking for DIY information or step-by-step guidance, How to Buy a Home is the #1 resource for first-time homebuyers.
What is happening, my homies? I'm your host, David Sidoni, and I've been coaching first-time homebuyers for 20 years and dropping all the first-time homebuyer insider secrets right here on this podcast since 2019. Tens of thousands of renters just like you have passed through here over the last 6 years and are now proud homeowners. This is a sharing and learning community. But what's interesting is the goal isn't to have you stay here in this community for too long, because we've got a mission. The mission is education, clarity, and then action. So today, we're going to get you the playbook for the action to get you in the right mindset so you can find the right steps that you need to take starting today so you can bolster your position as a future homeowner. And it doesn't matter if that goal is in 2 weeks, 2 months, or even 2 years from now. Using this playbook, everyone can find their own actual practical applications, things you can start to do right now. You can do them immediately and move forward on your journey. But the entire playbook, it has an overall theme, a philosophy, a system. Anybody can follow the steps looking at the playbook, but understanding the big picture and the thinking behind each play, behind the total game plan, that's how you achieve maximum success. Now, as a self-diagnosed real estate data nerd, I've crafted this first-time homebuyer playbook for over 20 years. And my nerdiness isn't limited to just real estate data and the real estate historical study that I do. I'm also a sports fanatic and a monster musical theater geek. And yes, I'm aware that's an incredibly odd mix. What can I say? I am a dorky version of a 21st century Renaissance man. So when I was trying to figure out the best way to explain the first-time homebuyer ultimate playbook, well, duh, it's right there, playbook. It seemed only logical to dig into my sports nerd persona. I did try to do it with musical theater metaphors, but even with my incredibly vast knowledge of show tunes, I now must defer to sports. Which actually is pretty awesome because as I record this right now, football season is finally back. Thank God. My Chargers are on tonight. They're playing in Brazil of all places. So with football on our minds, go ahead and think of this playbook as the recipe to get you to the Super Bowl of homeownership. Or if you're not a football person, you can envision winning the NBA Finals or the Stanley Cup or the World Series or whatever the hell they call the professional cornhole championship game. Okay, here's how it works. You're the team. And using this playbook, you're on a quest to win the ring. Sorry, for my non-sports friends, the ring that they talk about is the championship ring that you get awarded for being the best team of the year. So like, think of a Tony or an Oscar. All winning teams say this. To win their championship, it all started back in training camp. And before you ever even look at your playbook, first you come into camp and you get indoctrinated in the overall team philosophy, their system. And a lot of times it's in the form of a team motto. And they want to get the team completely immersed in that. And then build the plays in the playbook around that, the ones that can be best executed with the team philosophy. So your credo and identity, that directs everything that you're going to be doing with the playbook. The great coaches announce to their team this motto, this credo on day one. For Bill Belichick, it was do your job. Pat Summitt said attitude is a choice. Bear Bryant said don't be afraid of change. Tom Landry said, the will to prepare is more important than the will to succeed. That is a great one for first-time home buyers. The will to prepare is more important than the will to succeed. And of course, my buddy Ted Lasso, he put it up above the door. It just said, believe. So for your success, before we jump into the ultimate first-time homebuyer playbook, let me give you a team philosophy, the one we're going to use to help you win this game. We're opening training camp right now, and we've got one thought. Build a rent replacement strategy. That's the core of all of the plays that you're going to be getting in the playbook. It fuels everything that we're going to do. That credo is going to shape all the actions and decisions that happen in the playbook. Rent replacement strategy. All right, it's not as catchy as the other ones, I get it. So maybe you're wondering why. Well, because as your first-time homebuyer coach, I've looked at the opponents we've got coming up in 2025 and 2026, and dude, they are stacked. I've scouted them. And there are two main obstacles to winning this season if you want to become a first-time homebuyer. You've got high rent and unaffordable housing. and neither of them is going anywhere anytime soon. So we've got to learn to play against those guys this season. So to understand how to beat them this season, let's dive into this core philosophy so that you can execute at the highest level. And who knows, maybe you'll be the MVP on the commercial that says, I'm going to Disneyland. The rent replacement strategy is a simple concept, but it's profound when you fully comprehend the complexities of the math involved. Works like this. Every month, your rent is the biggest bill you pay. Thousands of dollars leave your account and vanish into your landlord's pocket. So as a result of that, you might often hear people say, hey, don't throw your money away on rent. But that sure sounds tone deaf to toss out that statement in 2025. I mean, in today's economy, that's laughably easier said than done. Where is the understanding when people say that? Where is their compassion? Where is them actually having a clue about a renter's plight right now? It is not the easiest housing market right now. But what you can do is remember the team motto. It's a rent replacement strategy. Now that should completely change the perception of what you're trying to accomplish. Don't think of your options in an either or choice, like renting or buying. This is a replacement strategy. You already pay a very high rent payment. So logistically and fiscally, you're pretty much already doing what a homeowner does each month. You're paying that current payment every month. And you're already paying at least 50% of a mortgage, maybe 2/3, or 75 or 80%, or maybe even 100% of a full mortgage payment. So when you're buying a home, it's not either or. It's not a new purchase. It's a replacement for the money that you already spend with no return. And the extras you get by replacing that spend with a house payment instead, that's exciting. That payment acts as a forced savings account wrapped up in a roof over your heads. So right off the bat, it's already a 2-for-1 deal, but you also get so much more. A house payment, unlike rent, it doesn't rise every year. It's fixed, which means your wealth increases every year because you're not going to be paying higher monthly payments for your shelter. And a home, that's a stable investment. It's yours, and you are in control of your life. And you get the tax benefits of homeownership, and you're going to be gaining equity, free profits for you. And of course, the big one, you're gaining equity. Oh, and in just a few years down the road, you're going to have 100,000 times better options in your life than if you were in a lease and the only thing you had to look forward to was getting your security deposit back. So I've said this before. It is so not an either or. It is not an apples to apples comparison. It's an apples to an apple orchard comparison. Stacks and stacks and stacks of benefits for you with a similar monthly output. You already do this. So now do it similarly, but with way better results. So you can gain financial freedom and immediate control of your life. As I mentioned before, I understand. I know that right now, this doesn't seem like the easiest thing to do, and maybe it doesn't even make sense. Well, I've been doing the math to support this theory all along, and I even did it recently in episode 355, Rent versus Buy for 2025. Now, what was crazy was I did that a few weeks ago, and I think I did it at interest rates of about 6.9. I just woke up today, and the average interest rate is down to 6.2. So back then, in episode 355, if you go and listen to that math, the math is even better today. And that's the only thing I look at, the math. Renting versus owning is always absolutely crushed by the positive gains of owning a home as early as you can, even when the affordability is where it's been for the last year or two, where it's not optimum. Again, you can listen to episode 355 for some very eye-opening numbers. I can't tell you when I'm handing someone the keys how many buyers turn to me and say, David, this is awesome, but dude, I wish I had done this sooner. Because after they've worked with a team that has shown them what's possible, they now see the years of wasted opportunity, the money lost, the appreciation they missed, the stability that got delayed. Waiting even just a couple of years, that can mean losing out on tens of thousands of dollars in appreciation and handing another $50,000 or more back to your landlord. So now maybe you're wondering, all right, David, if this is such an advantage, why aren't there more coaches using this motto, this system? The reason is most coaches out there don't preach this because most real estate agents have ignored first-time homebuyers for decades. They don't know how to do this. They want buyers who can buy quickly so they can get paid fast. Planning with buyers months ahead of time, No, that's a playbook that most of them have never even seen. And the sad part is when you take the philosophy of a rent replacement strategy and you add it to the playbook, and that playbook's going to be part 2 of this episode, most of you out there, if not almost all of you out there, you actually could qualify much earlier than you currently think. You could stop paying rent maybe even years before you thought it was possible. So to embrace the rent replacement strategy, let's flip the script a bit. Instead of thinking about getting a dream home, let's think about building a dream life. Instead of HGTV dreaming about that beautiful, picturesque perfection home, to instead practically planning to build a dream life. We're going to focus on the very real concept of a rent replacement strategy that's going to be your first step to financial freedom. Now, I understand for many people out there, your first home, it's going to be your starter home. But I've had a lot of people that actually make their first purchase almost a lateral move from an apartment to a condo or a townhome. Or maybe they compromise on that first starter home because that starter home, that uses your biggest financial monthly output to work for you. It's the first step in a long game that leads to stability, security, and wealth. So we're going to shift the mindset. When you go to a sports training camp, the motto that they slap up on the locker room isn't win the trophy, win the championship. That's unspoken. Everyone knows that's the goal. The motto, that credo, that system, that's the mindset that fuels you all season long to get you to the championship game. So as a renter, don't focus on the trophy. A home purchase is different than any other purchase you've ever done because you're not buying a regular consumer product. You're not buying a thing. It's not this product that's going to serve you for a certain amount of time before it depreciates, gets old, and then you need to replace it with a new one. What you're buying is a multi-purpose asset with money that you already spend on shelter. And you're going to be replacing that mandatory lost payment by just putting it into a new form of shelter. It's a one-for-one trade, though most of the time it usually is an upgrade. And it also comes with the fantastic perk that you get to attain a wealth-building strategy. I'm going to repeat that part again. A home is using money you already spend and putting it into a forced savings account that will literally transform your financial future. So believe in the motto, don't believe the noise. There are so many articles out there telling people that right now renting is cheaper than owning. But the problem with all of them is that they're only using the one-to-one comparison of the monthly payment. They say, hey, my rent's $2,200, so I can only afford a mortgage if it's $2,200 or less. But that is absolutely not the full math of real affordability. It's so basic and wrong. It just really bums me out when I see that because it's not factoring in 3 crucial mathematical details. 1, home payments are fixed and locked in, while rents keep going up. 2, home prices aren't going to see a steep drop anytime soon, so the math won't magically get better, so you shouldn't sit around and wait for something better. And then number 3, every day that you keep renting, you're taking away from your future financial stability that you could be building. Because the longer you own a home, the more time that you have that investment, the more wealth that you achieve. And in this case, time really does equal money. A mortgage payment is nothing like a rental payment. It's an investment vehicle that will give you options that you've never had with a lease. And then there's some renters out there that say, hey man, I don't want to be tied down to a home. I rent because I want my freedom. Now, first up, I said to them, cool. I totally hear that. And straight up, it kind of saddens me when I hear that because like the motto says, it's a rent replacement strategy. So you can do both. You're not sacrificing one for the other. Unfortunately, the people who say that, most of them, they don't even know what's even possible because the real estate industry has done a lousy job explaining this playbook to you. And I do completely respect and understand that you might think that freedom is the perk of being a renter. But when you get to know the full facts, it's actually kind of the opposite. Now, I'm not going to judge you for your feelings. If you have really strong feelings about your freedom, I'm going to fully back your decision. As long as you tell me that you have really completely researched the math of a rent replacement strategy versus keeping your free lifestyle. Because unless you go full van life, you're going to pay rent somewhere. And the true freedom is using your renting years to build so you have options for your future. And I'm not talking about retirement future. I don't mean 55 or 65 years old. I'm talking about future when you're young and you can still enjoy it. Because think about the next 5 years of your life. If you own instead of rent in 5 years, you're not going to be 55 or 60 at that point. But if you own, in 5 years, you could trade up and get a bigger place. Or you could keep that home as an investment. Or you could freaking cash out completely. Take all that money in 5 years, use the profits, and travel the world. That sounds pretty free to me. And you can't do that after 5 years of renting. I don't think you're going to have a really big global trip if all you've got is your security deposit. I'm here because I understand what the generation of renters is feeling right now. And I'm really kind of pissed off that no one's shown you the math of what you actually can do. You work hard to get the money that you use to pay your rent. And at the end of 30 days, unfortunately, you're gaining nothing. There's no return, no asset, no equity. It's just gone. All you've achieved is the shelter that you had for the last month. And now, guess what? You have to pay it all over again. That's why this philosophy is so important. Now, if some of you guys are further along in this whole process, maybe you're thinking, all right, bro, but aren't you forgetting I still have to buy the house? What about getting qualified for a loan and saving for a down payment and closing costs? You're right. I get it. And those are the details and the plays that you're going to find in the playbook in the next episode. You're going to take that playbook, hire the right coaches, and remember, the earlier, the better. And together, you're going to build your game plan in training camp. Here's a little teaser from the playbook. Okay, you're going to start getting your coaches, and then your coaches can help you identify the real numbers in the home buying process instead of the fear-based numbers that are those myths that are out there keeping renters for way too long. Now, if you've done some research, maybe you've been seeing people freak out about buying a home before you have 20% down because you have to pay this extra payment called PMI, private mortgage insurance. I don't want to pay extra. That doesn't make any sense. Why don't I just wait? Well, I've gone into intense detail about how using a low down payment option and paying that small PMI payment is far, far mathematically more beneficial for renters than trying to save up 20% and renting the whole time. That could cost you $24,000 a year or $36,000 or $48,000. And you could have replaced your rent, owned a home, and the PMI payment would have only costed you maybe $600 to $1,800 a year. Big difference. And that's just one glaring variable in the overall equation. You can check out episode 198, PMI is a privilege, and episode 216, PMI is still a privilege and still not the devil. And you'll be absolutely blown away when you hear the numbers in those episodes. Okay, and getting back to the sports analogy, if you're using a low down payment option and pricing in the small PMI payment so that you can actually afford to buy a home, that would be like landing the league's most unbelievable free agent for pennies on the dollar, meaning your team right now has everything they need to win the championship this year. So rent replacement strategy, post that motto on a banner above your door frame. Just jump up and slap it every time you walk out of the room. This is changing the story that you tell yourself every single day. Renting is about survival, but owning is about growth. So when you reframe your housing decision, and you're thinking of it as a rent replacement strategy, it no longer becomes a question of, ooh, things are weird in the market. Should I wait? It's a question of, why am I still paying rent at all? All right, team, welcome to training camp. Grab some water and meet me inside the classroom because up next, we're going to break out the playbook. Coming to you in part 2. You can do this.
Looking for more DIY education or your own personal step-by-step guidance through the home buying journey? Since 2019, How to Buy a Home has been the #1 resource for first-time home buyers. So visit howtobuyaHome.com to get started.